Now more than ever, innovative technologies are fueling change and sparking new ways of thinking. Collaboration between corporations and startups is key to staying at the forefront of these trends. However, finding the right startups can be expensive, time-consuming, and ineffective. But Plug and Play is here to help. As a corporate partner, you will gain access to a whole ecosystem of innovation. Discover startups that meet your tech interests. Stay updated on the latest trends and network with industry peers. We will help you during every stage of your innovation journey, no matter where you are and where you want to go. Get in touch today.
So I want to introduce our guest today. We have Mehdi Alawi, who's the founder of La Startup Factory. Welcome. Pardon? No, I got the wrong one, sorry. My apologies. I'm glad Aziz is here. He's helping me out. Kenza Lalo is the general partner of Outliers. Yes, there you are. Okay, thank you. I have the right list this time. Okay, then we have Kayan Kassiri. Great to see you. He is the VC at Lateral Capital Investment Partners. Good to have you. And we have Sidi Mohammed Zakroy, is the investment director at CF or SEAF. Good to see you. I hope I did okay with your name. Okay, thank you. And Omar Lalij, director at Africa Invest. Yes? Good, okay, good. So I just gave a one-liner introduction. What I'd love to do, I'll turn to you now. I'd love you to just tell us a little bit more about yourself and what's top of mind. What are you thinking about today in terms of your work? So we're gonna start with you, Kenza. Please.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. So I'm the general partner of Outliers Ventures, which is an Africa-focused VC fund that invests in tech-enabled companies that are using technology to transform traditional industries. So we focus mainly on seed and pre-series A, and we invest across 4 main markets. So Morocco, where the team is based, Egypt, Nigeria, and Kenya. So those are the main hubs that we look into. And we look at fundamental industries, including fintech, insurtech, logistics, supply chain, and health. And this is where our investments are mainly today. So what's top of mind? Well, that's great to have a physical event. So great to see you all and to be able to reconnect with people. But beyond that, I think it's interesting we have a panel of Moroccan VC investors, but also Africa-focused VC investors, and Tunisia, Africa as well. So it would be interesting to give a perspective of what's happening in Africa in terms of VC investment and technology, giving the fact after the crisis, how those companies have been benefiting from the crisis or have been impacted. So I think the VC industry and digital in general is a space that have been positively impacted, in generally speaking, and it would be great to maybe give examples of portfolio companies or companies we see that have known this growth.
Wonderful. Well, we look forward to that. Thanks. Welcome. Next, Kayan. I had the pleasure of having dinner with you yesterday evening.
It was a lovely time.
You have an incredible story. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hey, hi everyone. Feels good to be back to the physical world. No more Zoom, please. But yeah, my name is Kian. I'm a VC investor at Lateral Capital. We're a New York City fund investing Pan-Africanly. We've made 17 investments so far, mostly focused on our primary markets, East Africa and West Africa. But then I'm leading on North Africa, Francophone Africa. We invest from seed until Series B with ticket sizes between 300K up to 3 million. And one particularity is that we invest both in equity and debt. My personal mission in what I'm doing, because I'm from Tunisia, but then I used to live in Nigeria 2019, and I work in sub-Saharan markets primarily, is to actually build that bridge between Northern Africa and sub-Saharan Africa, but also between French-speaking Africa and English-speaking. So as a French-speaking African who is connected and works and used to live in Anglophone Africa really noticed that these are two separate ecosystems. The people don't know each other. They don't go to the same events. The Francophones use Facebook. The Anglophones use Twitter. Like, it's just two parallel universes that don't connect. And I think times are changing. There's much more cross-Saharan investments happening, but also expansions, with some Egyptian startups that expanded in East and West Africa, but also some Nigerian startups that expanded in Northern Africa. And I'm super happy to witness that and be a small part of this change.
Yeah, we're glad too. Thank you. So you go by Sidi or Mohammed?
Sure.
Which name do you prefer?
Simo.
Oh,
Simo's perfect.
Okay, please, Simo.
Well, many thanks for the invitation. Really happy to be here and to see some friends and familiar faces. We missed that. So yeah, actually I'm investment director at CIF, which is actually one of the leading impact investment leaders in the world, focusing on emerging markets. Oh. And we are actually running the first VC fund in Morocco with $25 million. We are focusing on from C to Series A on innovative companies powered by strong IP and technology. And we invested actually in 6 companies in the spaces of health tech, ed tech, fintech, and agri-tech. We also made lately an investment in the cybersecurity space. Really happy to be here. I think what is great about this panel is that we have various investors covering different sub-regions in Africa. So I'm really thrilled to share our point of views and on-field experience.
Great. Well, thanks. It's wonderful to have you here as well. And last but not least, Omar.
Thank you very much. Is this working?
Yep.
I'm very excited to be here. First thing that crossed my mind as I walked up here was the venue. Looks really nice.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if I was here in Casablanca or in San Francisco. So congrats to the organizers. And we need more of these. And hopefully after the pandemic, we can continue to hold as many of these as possible. Quick word on the firm I represent. Africa Invest is an investment platform that was created in '94 out of Tunisia, and that today is present in 8 countries in Africa, with presence in France, Dubai, and the US. We have ventured into the VC space after being one of the most prominent investors on the private equity side, and we have gone into some specialized strategies, including venture capital. And today we manage a fund in partnership with our friends at Cathay Innovation on investments in Series A and Series B opportunities with tickets ranging from €1 million to €10 million. So we've created this fund about 1.5 years ago, and we have a portfolio of portfolio companies that, well, that didn't make sense. Portfolio companies that we're happy to back and look forward to telling you more about if that makes sense.
Great. Well, wonderful. What an amazing panel to be with here. Let's get started. I'm going to ask the first question to you, Kenza. And it's an exciting time here in Africa. It's becoming a lot more attractive for foreign investments. What countries do you think in the region are best positioned to take advantage of that? And importantly, why is that? What are they doing right?
Sure. So maybe let's have a look at the African continent first and then dig a little bit deeper into the MENA region. So in terms of dynamism of the ecosystems, it's very clear, given the data, where investors are investing their money, and that shows what ecosystem is the most dynamic. So we have 4 tech hubs in Africa. The first one is Nigeria, then Kenya, South Africa, and Egypt. The numbering will change year by year, but those are the 4 main tech hubs that get 85% of the total VC funding that goes to Africa, which is huge. So why? Maybe the first reason is the maturity of those ecosystems. So those ecosystems have been, this is where there is a kind of maturity of the talents themselves, the entrepreneurs that have been building companies, exiting companies, or being at big companies that raised a lot of money and then went out of those companies and started their own. So there is a maturity there, but also there is availability of follow-on capital Series A, B, C investors that are focusing on those hubs, but mainly it's the size of the markets that can explain that as well. So Egypt and Nigeria are big markets themselves where companies can start and scale within the local market before starting to go out. Kenya has a particularity in the sense that they have built early on and very solid digital infrastructure and innovation infrastructure given M-Pesa that started more than 10 years ago, and that enables, so this is the first mobile payment infrastructure that enables people to pay via their mobile phone, not even smartphones at that time, and still today, only via SMS, and built on a network of agents. And this enabled companies to plug into this network and enable mobile payment, which remove the friction of cash, which is something that is really hard and is a bottleneck for innovation and for startup growth. So this is an example of why Kenya is so much advanced in terms of innovation. And the last part would be regulation. So those countries have been more advanced and regulators more proactive in terms of permissive of innovators to start and test things before putting a regulation around that and enabling them to get access to a license or anything else that allow them to operate, which is different in Francophone markets. So that's why there is a huge disparity between Francophone and Anglophone markets, given the mindset and given the dynamism or the how the ecosystem and the market works.
Yeah, wonderful answer. Thank you. Very, very thorough. This is for CD now. So Kenza mentioned, for example, population size, which is always good for economic power, especially when the bigger the better. What are some of the smaller countries, I guess, in your view, that are doing things right, and how do they differ from what Kenza said?
Sure. Well, actually, the good news for Africa is that we're seeing actually negative interest rates in Western countries, which of course give appetite to investors and LPs for risk and emerging markets. And Africa is definitely benefiting from these capital flows. It's true that Nigeria, Kenya, and also South Africa, even Egypt, are really benefiting of, let's say, of this flow of money, but it's also consequently creating kind of high valuation spikes, etc., which push some other investors, sometimes more sophisticated, more verticalized, look at some other sub-regions where there are challenges, there are some infrastructure to roll out, but it's a great bet for the future. This is actually what we've been doing here in Morocco, and we really think that Morocco, but also the Maghreb in general, with Tunisia and also the greater Maghreb with Egypt, is a region that will be more and more attractive. Coming back to Morocco, we see also that these levers that Kenza was actually talking about, like regulation, like talent, are really improving in terms of talent. We're noticing, for example, that there is a huge wave with the COVID outbreak of diaspora talent coming back, willing to set up companies to build regional and global scale-ups. In terms of regulation, we saw that government policies are now looking for tech-enabled solutions to deal with and tackle main challenges and leapfrog them. So we think that there is a momentum in Morocco. It's true that for now the VC scene is a nascent one, but we really believe that there is a strong potential, and this is what we're actually doing on the field these last 3 years, investing in some companies that we believe can really be this digital infra, this digital enabler to make the market more attractive, but also to export some very promising Moroccan technologies in Africa and emerging markets.
Great advice there. Great thoughts. So this is for Kian. Looking to some of your personal experience in the countries you've worked, and you've worked in many. What have you seen personally that's contributes to a healthy investment ecosystem? What have you personally experienced?
Okay, what do you mean by okay? So like the elements of the ecosystem that make it healthy?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Good one. And I think, I can double down on Kenza's great educative explanation on how Africa is mapped around those hubs. It's interesting to see the difference between Nigeria and Kenya, and that's directly correlated to,
Right.
to your answer, is that both of these ecosystems have been built in very different ways. In Nigeria, it's been diaspora, crazy Nigerians from great companies in the US, in Canada, in UK, who came back, and yeah, there's been a massive influx of that diaspora who put together, brought their networks, their investments, and started building. In Eastern Africa and in Kenya, it's been mainly grants, impact investing. It's been mainly Europeans. So, you know, you see a lot of European money, free cash, free grants, competitions, and yeah, checks and, you know, applause and event, and then that's it. And that was, you know, 7 years ago, and things change since then, hopefully. But the difference is that you see it still in the DNA. So a lot of impact investing still exists in Kenya, while in Nigeria, it's more business, commercial, pure commercial return driven. And then that's one of the reasons also US VCs have been focusing more on the Western Africa side, while Europeans have been on the Eastern one. So yeah, to answer your question, what contributes to a healthy ecosystem? One is, I think, a good connection to the diaspora and good intercooperation. Second, I think people who, okay, there's a cultural aspect for sure. So Nigerians are hungry for success since early age, right? Like when you meet a Nigerian, they will usually tell you their first job, and then you can tell them, okay, what's your other jobs? Everybody has a side hustle. They have a side business. Like they can be an engineer, but then they also sell jeans on WhatsApp. They do other stuff. Like they really work a lot, and they're hungry for success. So I think there's that DNA. What else? I think it's important to think regionally as well, from day one. So it's been our thesis at Lateral Capital. It's never too early to think regional. You know, we see a lot of slides, and even in Tunisia, you know, there's this slide where they say, yeah, and then we're going to expand to Africa.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, what's Africa? Which country are you going? Do you really have a strategy, or is it just a slide to make investors happy? I think it's interesting for those ecosystems that they have a clear plan or which country to go next and which connections have been being built. And then to explain, for example, the advantages of each of these areas. So, for example, in Eastern Africa, Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya have open frontiers. They have Ethiopian Airlines, so that they can fly for cheap and interconnectedness. And then there is highways. They use mobile money, and there is Swahili language, who also connects these three countries, and that's a huge advantage, right?
Yeah.
So Nigeria, for example, next to it is Togo. They speak French. They're completely disconnected with them. And then on the eastern side, there is Cameroon, and there is also a huge disconnect. So actually, the closest country to Nigeria, at least culturally and even in a business, is Ghana, which is like three countries next to it, and which just highlights how important is those connections of language, but also culturally. So, you know, Nigerian families, they go to Ghana for vacation, they come back, they know each other. So when we think of Tunisia and Morocco, because we have the same problem of this, Africa seems too far.
Yeah.
It's like, do you really have connections? And which country is that? It could be Senegal, Ivory Coast, because it's Francophone. You guys have Tijeri, and Tijeri can connect to so many countries, same as France did with Orange and Orange countries. So there's so many opportunities to tackle into those angles.
Great examples. I'm getting a geography lesson here, like I never had one, so thank you for that. I'm going to come to you, Omar, in just a moment. In a few moments, we're going to ask if you have questions yourselves. So be thinking about a really good question for this amazing group. Omar, we've heard some excellent examples of the countries that are doing the right things to attract investment and a healthy investment ecosystem. For those that are kind of up and coming and just have to kind of break through, what's some advice you'd say of the things they need to do? Your personal experience, just talk from
not an easy one, but maybe just to piggyback on what my peers have been saying. I think if you look at the opportunity landscape in Africa, you really have to dissect it into macro and micro level. Obviously, the geography component is an important one, and there are cultural aspects, there are financing aspects, there are devaluation risks on the currency side, there are political risk, reputational risk. I mean, so much can go on onto the macro side, and then you go into the micro side of things, and then you start, benchmarking companies and sectors versus other parts of the world that have really gone through a similar curve.
Yeah.
And that's why, we're really excited about the partnership that we've built with Cathay Innovation, because they've done the same thing in Asia and Latin America, which has very similar macro and micro dynamics to what Africa is currently going through. And part of what we do on a daily basis is to really try to draw parallels between what happened in those places around the world and apply some of the specificities of the African culture and context and dynamics to try to back the ones that have the best chances of emerging as winners.
Yeah.
And maybe to illustrate what I just said, a company that we invested in recently is based in San Francisco, founded by two Nigerian people, a Ph.D. at a former executive at Amazon, and his co-founder is a professor at Stanford. And these guys have built artificial intelligence algorithms to try to address as many unbanked and underbanked citizens in Nigeria who didn't have access to the right lending products. And so first, they had to demonstrate that there is a need for this type of product. So they convinced angel investors in the Silicon Valley to back them. But they had to distribute these loans, and we're talking about loans that go for 14 to 30 days at $5 to $60 for $5 and $60 at crazy interest rates, but unsecured, completely unsecured risk profiles. And so the reason why I bring up this example is because you have engineers sitting in Silicon Valley trying to figure out how someone who has 2, sometimes 3 phones in Nigeria is thinking psychologically. It's really hard to do. And so you have to test it out, and you have to collect as much data on these people as you possibly can. And so if I look at the addressable market in Nigeria, you have 200 million people, half of them are adults, and most of them have 2 or 3 phones. 61% of those don't have a financial services account.
Right.
And so it makes, you spoke about Orange in West Africa, and Francophone speaking in West Africa, you have other telcos in Anglophone speaking in West Africa that have so much data about people that data is becoming super valuable. And so how can you build on top of that data, right? And then comes the issue of regulation, right? People in the government say that they want to embrace open banking, but then just as of this morning, there was a statement where a couple of startups couldn't have access to data from banking participants, which creates a lot of frustration for startups and entrepreneurs, and therefore it creates a lot of frustration for investors, right? And so you have to find solutions based on these issues. And I think it goes beyond the cultural and macroeconomic aspects. It really has to dive in and deep dive and try to understand the underlying pain points that these entrepreneurs are trying to solve.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Amar. For you, Sidi, what are the sectors that you're looking at that are opportunistic in Africa, and then perhaps focus on Morocco too? What are you looking at?
Sure, it's actually sectors that we already invest in, but we're keen on on following on. Well, we really believe that some sectors are eager to welcome entrepreneurs with great technologies to leapfrog actually the existing challenges. We think, for example, agri-tech is one of the sectors we're really looking at. Because, I mean, talking about Africa, but also Morocco, we need to rationalize resources, especially water. So all the AI-driven decision-making tools for agro players to rationalize their resources, their entrance, etc., will be definitely a win-in value proposition. We're also thinking of creating a sustainable agriculture, better eco-friendly ecosystems. So all the new biochemical generation of intrants, etc., can definitely be of interest. So this is basically for agri-tech. For the fintech, I totally agree with my peers. In Africa, you have a very high mobile penetration rate. I think that 100% of the population basically is equipped, but you have 30% of the people who are having a bank account. So it's of course a preferred channel for any player to work on the financial inclusion. But technology can also help slash intermediaries create, let's say, price transparencies.
Right.
So definitely a very interesting space for entrepreneurs. We do like also health tech, because once again there is a macro issue for the whole continent, but also in Morocco we don't have enough doctors for the population.
Yeah.
So all the technology that we leverage, telemedicine schemes, etc., will be really interesting to fill this gap. We can also think of, let's say, cheaper diagnosis to help people prevent versus cure. So once again, great space where we can see interesting opportunity emerge.
Yeah, great answer. And we can do with a lot of innovation in health. It's a slow-moving space, but a very important one. So thanks for that. This is for you now, Kenza. Following on from Sidi's points, of these different sectors, and you're free to choose others, how well is Africa, and you can pick a country, positioned to compete with the rest of the world, with Silicon Valley, with France, with the Gulf states? What are your thoughts? Which one really stands out to you?
Yeah, so Africa has some very local challenges that entrepreneurs can solve with technology that are very different from what you can see in Silicon Valley. And those are the models that will succeed in Africa. And you know, entrepreneurs that are trying to copy-paste things that they've seen in other markets, they need to go there to make them work. So for Africa, there are very local solutions that are scalable to other markets in the continent. And Africa is big on fintech. Fintech is big in the world at the moment, but 40% of total investment goes to the fintech sector, which shows, because there is a big challenge of financial inclusion across the continent, and technology can help solve that and close the gap, the infrastructure gap that exists by providing means of payment or mobile money wallets, or digitizing the KYC check to make it possible for people to access financial services from remotely. So those are many different challenges that can turn into opportunities for entrepreneurs in Africa. So I would say fintech is the number one. Then, of course, logistics and supply chain is also a big sector, because any industry will have to move goods or move things in order to get from point A to point B. So the value chain of logistics is very, very fragmented and still very traditional. So this is also something that technology can help solve. And we have many examples in different sectors of how this is applied to supply chain. For example, I think the best is to give real examples. So I'll give the example of a portfolio company, two portfolio companies solving the same problem. One called Sokowatch in Kenya, and the other called Maxab in Egypt. So both of them are solving the value chain of how FMCG are distributing their products to small retailers, to small informal retailers, and by enabling those small retailers to order via an app and to get delivered in 24 hours. And how they are solving this problem is because the whole value chain is very fragmented, as the goods have to go to a distributor, then a wholesaler, then a semi-wholesaler, before they get to the small retailer, like les épiciers that you have everywhere. And this is true for all countries in Africa. And 80% of all the products sold, FMCG products, are sold via this network. So what they are doing is that they're aggregating the supply chain, and they are enabling the small retailers to get access to product directly via the app, and they aggregate all the product And with data, they are able to predict, buy in bulk from those FMCG and distribute and optimize the distribution. So a very small micro distribution via their via small logistic tuk-tuks, as we call them. And this is a real innovation. And this, enables those small retailers to get included in the system. They're not out of stock anymore, and after that they can start getting loans to be able to buy more products, sell more, and make more revenue. So this is a typical example. And the last one is health tech, as Simo mentioned, which is big because of the current situation,
right?
But also because of how technology can really help improve this sector.
Yeah, that's such a great answer. Now, the motivation to solve the problems you have here are applicable around the world. You're incentivized because they're urgent, right? And then they can apply to every region of the world. We'll have just one more question for Kayan here, and be ready to ask your questions, okay? I'm giving you a heads up. For you, and it feels like the same type of question that I asked you last time, but a different flavor. What areas, your colleagues here have spoken about the areas where Africa is doing well and can be matched or even superior to regions around the world. What areas would you like to see the African communities participate in where they don't? Right? What are what's a missed opportunity in your view, based on what you're observing?
I always get the hardest questions.
It's not fair. I feel like I'm asking you the hardest questions. By the way, it's good evidence that they haven't seen the questions in advance.
Oh, yeah. No, something that I'm looking closely at is beyond Africa, what happens next, right? So African Invest have a portfolio company who expanded to Latin America. There's a Nigerian company, Egyptian company who expanded in Pakistan. So, the challenge is, so I'm a venture partner in another fund called Relicap Ventures, and they invest in fintech across Latin America, Southeast Asia, and Africa. And yeah, over the past year, I've just noticed how similar are the challenges, right? And a lot of the models are replicable with the localization, right? Like making it, Africanized, but everything from buy now, pay later to credit scoring as a service, to FMCG supply chain, to neobanks, all of these existed in Mexico and Brazil. I mean, India first, and then Mexico and Brazil. We're seeing it now in Indonesia, Pakistan, and now they're happening here. So it's important to think the other way around, which is, once you grow here, then where do you go? So that's one. Second area of improvement that I'm fascinated about is deep tech, right? It's good to do websites and apps and platforms, and it's, average tech that is useful. Yeah. But then can you also have a breakthrough innovation? And that's happening. There's several of them. One of them is called 54 Gene, and they're building a genomics company for African genomes. All the drug testing that is happening in big pharma, they usually have their Bibliothèque de Genome, and it's usually Europeans and American genomes. So when they test the drugs, they don't have enough African genomes to test on, and then when the drug is manufactured, then it's too late, and we take it, but we're not exactly sure if it's optimized for our genomes. So there's an African one doing this deep tech. Another African investment in with drones and aerobotics in Southern Africa. But we are actually quite advanced in using drones to do good. So whether it's for agriculture, using some machine learning to identify the health of the trees and the farms, but also drones, Life Bank in Nigeria, which is using drones to deliver blood to remote areas. So, I'm saying this as, there is few examples, but I think it's not enough. And when you look at Northern Africa, our universities are quite good. Like Moroccan engineers and Tunisian engineers, they're quite good. And we're also good in math. And what we need is more private-public partnerships and OCP group and the likes who actually invest in R&D with our local talent so that we can create deep tech solution and we can externalize it. And that relates to your first question to Cyril when you ask about, what can small countries do?
Yeah.
And that's what Israel did. Israel is such a small market, small country, but they focus on deep tech and on cybersecurity, and most of their technology is exported.
Yeah.
Same for Estonia. Estonia made Skype, and then you only need one success story so that you create the ripple effect. So it was Skype for Estonia, it was Spotify and King for Sweden, and we used that Tunisia in the Startup Act. When we lobbied the government to adopt a set of laws for startups, they needed examples like, we're a small country, where are you telling us about startups and stuff? What can we do? And we're like, here are case studies. Here's how small is Estonia. Here's what happened, and this is the ripple effect that happened after that. So we only need one company to succeed. Everything will come with it.
Yeah.
And maybe if I can just add on to what Kian just said, and sometimes I still feel like he's part of our team, talking about Africa Invest, because Kian used to be with our team. But to piggyback on what you just said, I think what's also important to tell the panel is that the focus really needs to be at the product level. Like, do a very good job at whatever you're building, product or service, and then focus on scaling. But if you cannot win within the pain point ecosystem that you have identified, and you cannot really solve it with great user experience, with great unit economics, with a model that can be replicable in other markets without further massive investments, then you can perhaps think about scaling to other countries. And I think that's the mindset that entrepreneurs in smaller countries must have in order to go and perhaps win in bigger markets. And so I think this just goes beyond the case study example that you gave, which is extremely important. But I think entrepreneurs at their small level need to think about excelling in whatever they're building, and then getting support to scale beyond their borders.
Great point, great point. Thank you for adding that. Okay, so let's get a question or two from the audience. So who do we have? And do we have a roaming mic for that? Yeah, we have roaming mic. Who's got their hand up? Who's got a great question? We have somebody there? Perfect, okay. And tell us who you want to ask, tell us your name, and then who you want to ask the question to. Where's it gone? He ran right past you. He's
hello,
coming
everyone.
Back. Okay, yes.
Thanks for the great panel, very instructive. My name is Chilefa. So I'm actually a hybrid between Tunisia and Morocco. It's very interesting to see these two experiences. I'm actually a question regarding fundraising for investors, which is kind of counterintuitive because investors raise funds as well, just like startups in a way. And we see that in our geographies in Africa, most of the funds, they have a difficulty to raise funds unless you're from a specific geography, and most of the time will be donor funds or impact investment. And so we have a difficulty in the mindset of investors where we have wealthy, high net worth individuals in Morocco, captains of industries and businesses, traditional businesses, but not necessarily looking at startups as a necessarily interesting way of diversifying their portfolio investing. What is our responsibility or responsibilities of people here, as well as the investors, on increasing that culture of investing in human capital, investing in innovation, so that we can come to that level of development and technology?
Did you have it for anyone in particular?
I don't know. I could just go roulette.
Who wants to take it?
Anybody that would want to take it.
I can
go ahead, Omar.
start, and if you guys want to chime in. Thank you for the question. I think it's a very good question because, I think the number one problem that we have here in Africa is cultural. The number one thing, and particularly in North Africa, is that we don't like to share. We don't like to share success stories. So a lot of people are not aware of whoever succeeded and how they succeeded and who helped them succeed. We're worried that something bad is going to happen. It's part of our DNA. And so that's number one in my personal assessments, having been back in Morocco as an adult 6 years ago. Second thing is that today, without development banks, mostly from Europe and North America, I don't think you'll see any institutional investors that are investing and backing entrepreneurs from small to big at any level. So we still rely heavily on development banks coming from outside of Africa. However, more recently, we're starting to see the emergence of more and more corporate and private institutions, and I'll talk about the VC space because that's the topic of the day. Most corporates now outside of Africa are thinking of the next 1 billion user. How am I going to attract and sell my products or service to the next billion user? So Africa is a big untapped market from that perspective. I'll give you an example of a portfolio company that we recently invested in. It's a Chinese company operating in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa. In Nigeria alone, they have more users than Twitter and Instagram combined, right? With 55 million active users. So that's interesting because it's only one country. It's in the music space. It's very sticky. And you can tap into that population to build other services on top of it. And so corporations are very attracted by that, right? Because they're somewhere around the world and they see this young population. You know, by 2050, half of the African population will be under the age of 25. So that's extremely appealing. So it means you can build with this population long term. And private investors around the world are more and more wary of that. And within our ecosystems, you can see that, let's just give the example of Morocco. You know, 3 years ago, with the support of the World Bank and a program very well run by Caisse Centrale de Garantie, you saw the emergence of a couple of new funds. You know, CEF benefited from that program. Others benefited from it. And we just need to be a bit more patient because startups don't emerge in 2 or 3 years. We're not going to see a unicorn tomorrow. So we need to have patient capital, and this needs to be incorporated into our culture as investors. Instead of looking for quick wins and being distracted by everything we see in the media, we need to build from the grounds up and focus on products, doing a good job, and I think we'll reap the rewards down the road.
Nice. Did you want to add to that?
I definitely agree with Omar on this, and to follow up on the cultural pattern. When we were actually pitching investor for our first close, many local investors just wanted to see it happening actually. It's a new asset class. They want to see if there is market depth, if we were able to back companies that will actually gain traction, revenue, scale, etc.
Yeah.
And we noticed in a very short period of time, like 1.5 years after, during our second closing, we were able actually to attract some investors, institutional ones, that would have never invested actually in the VC space. Pension funds, JV with the regional sovereign funds. So it's actually happening, and I definitely agree on the fact that we need to be a little bit patient, but we're definitely attracting more and more interest on the international level too.
Yeah.
We see some of our portfolio companies building some interesting layers for bigger corporations. And this is also attracting some interest. I can give an example of one of our portfolio company, which is an agri-tech. So for example, one of its corporate partner is bringing the technology to Eastern Europe. And it's also actually being showcased, so attracting some European investors that have stake in the sector. And this is how, let's say, the virtuous circle will happen and attract global investors to our regions.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. Did you want,
Yeah, just
okay, go ahead.
Maybe just to complete this, I think this is a very important question because as North African investors, we have also a responsibility to help those ecosystems emerge. And I think it's a question of timing, and it's also a question of how each of those players position itself and the responsibility it has, not only for entrepreneurs, but also for LPs, for investors in the funds. So there are two types of VC investors. There are those who are, or like investors, of investors in startups. There are those that are backed by government money, And those have the responsibility to take the risk at the beginning and invest in a large enough number of companies so that at least few of them can become success stories. And that other VCs that are more commercial or have commercial investors backing them, that can invest back and follow on and make them succeed. But it's important also to mention that for us as a commercial VC fund, we also have a responsibility of showing success. Because if we don't show success of the VC asset class itself, the future is lost from the beginning. So that's why there is a reason behind why we choose those ecosystems, so that we can at least diversify the portfolio, pick some great ones in Morocco, but also complete with other great companies in this other market that are a bit more mature. But definitely there is a huge potential for Morocco, Tunisia, and the whole region, and we hope we can play a role into that.
Can I share the Tunisian example?
Please.
Because this is too close of what happened in the past years. But basically it starts from looking at friends. Again, you know, we learn from what they're doing. And if you speak to any entrepreneur in France, they would usually tell you our first ticket was BPI France. It's just like the first ticket in, free money, here you go. And BPI France is a public-private partnership, but basically it's government money. And it's a small check that they just gave to thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs. And it needed to happen because for an ecosystem to go from 0 to 1, you don't really make money, right? So there's no reason for a US investor or whatever to come in Morocco and just like throw money, because usually you don't make money from 0 to 1. But then from 1 to infinite, you make a lot of money. So who needs to make the 0 to 1? It's the government, plus some corporates, because they know that they're gonna win on the long term. So what happened in Tunisia, with the Startup Act, you probably heard of it. It's a set of laws that got accepted by the parliament, and now it is giving a set of incentives to startups, like foreign USD accounts, tax incentive, some different HR policies as well. But then we also created Fund of Fund by our CDG. You have CDG too. We have the same CDG in another one. But yeah, it's a 200 million euros fund of fund. And we have investors like European Investment Bank and DFIs, Development Finance Institutions from Europe, plus also the government who created this fund of fund. We now close 40 million of it as a first close. And the responsibility of this fund of fund is to write small checks, 5 to 20 million, into emerging VC funds who are going to invest in local startups or diaspora returning, or any entrepreneur coming to Tunisia to build solutions. So yeah, the government has a responsibility of sparking that ecosystem, and then corporates usually follow. And something that is important is that whenever we speak to institutional investors abroad who want to invest in our countries, they say, do you guys have local money? It's like they need to see that Moroccans are investing in Morocco, so that it's a positive signal for them. It's like, why would we invest in a country if the people of that country don't even invest in themselves? It gives a negative signal. So what the Fund of Fund does, it gives this condition. It's like, we're going to give you money if you attract foreign investment. And the foreign investor, they say, we're going to give you money if you attract local investment. And they just come together.
Great.
This is exactly what the CCG with the Innovinvest program did, and we're actually one of the beneficiaries. And it's true that it brought actually a exhaustive and completely integrated financing value chain that sparkled actually the ecosystem 2 years ago. And then we're seeing all the waves you're actually describing, because corporates are also into the game. We're seeing also a very interesting international player like Plug and Play, but also local ones like 212 Founders starting to industrialize the pipeline. So we're sure that the best is yet to come.
Very nice, very nice. So we're going to wrap up here. We're going to do something a little different. I'll give you time to think about it. We'll start with Omar, and Kenza, you'll go last, okay? As you think now, sort of in a post-COVID world, what are the sort of 3 words that represent how you're thinking about the future? What are 3 words for you? Let's say the next 18 months. What would you use? What 3 words would you use?
Resilience, unity, and innovation.
Resilience, unity, and innovation. Very nice. Very good. Very good. Sidi?
I'll take resilience for sure.
Resilience?
Innovation and hope.
And hope. Yeah, innovation and hope. Yes, for sure, for everybody. We'll have you go last to have the last word.
I'm gonna cheat and I'm gonna change the rules. I need a sentence.
Okay.
And it's don't ask for permission, do it, and then ask for forgiveness.
Oh, that's okay. I thought you were doing that against me. No, kidding. Very good. Kenza, last word.
So definitely resilience. I think this is something that is on top of the mind of everyone. I would say growth and freedom, because we all want to go back to our normal life.
Well, good. So in a moment, just join me in thanking Kenza very much for being here, Kayan, Sidi, and Omar for an amazing panel. Thank you very much. And you'll be hanging out, so if people want to ask you questions, they could do it afterwards.